Just one word sums it up. It's devastating. It really is. I mean, the ethics commissioner, Mario Dion, says that Trudeau and people directed by Trudeau put undue pressure on Wilson Raybould to overturn a lawful decision made by the independent prosecutor's office. It's very obvious from what's being said. It's not you have to read between the lines or you have to figure it. He says on multiple occasions the Prime Minister directly or people directed by the Prime Minister put unwarranted and undue pressure on the Attorney General to try and cover up the SNC prosecution.
Lorne Gunter just dropped a bombshell on Justin Trudeau, pulling back the curtain on what's really happening after a shocking resignation rocks his government. This expose is making waves, and Trudeau's leadership is now under fire like never before. In today's video, we'll dive into Gunter's explosive claims, unpack the fallout from this resignation, and reveal how it could change the game for Trudeau's political future. Now, let's dive.
And the idea of interfering with the trial, I mean, it's so unusual to hear that in a free country. There's probably been 1,000 Hollywood movies made of some mob boss.
Hey, quick favor before we move on. If you find this political content interesting, go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel. Most of you watch without subscribing and it's free, but it helps us out so much. Have you done it yet? Thanks a ton for the support. Now let's get back to the video.
They did it on many occasions. They did it in inappropriate ways. And that they put at risk the independence of the court system in Canada. To me, that's devastating. Yeah. Now, I am articulating it in a slightly less bureaucratic way than Dion's office did, but nonetheless.
The Trudeau government has faced its share of criticism over the years, from controversial policies to questions about ethical practices. His leadership has been under a microscope. However, recent events, culminating in Trudeau's resignation, have raised the stakes dramatically. Canadians are left questioning what truly led to this moment and what it means for the nation. The political landscape in Canada has been fraught with division. Trudeau's government has both ardent supporters and vocal detractors. This polarization has set the stage for Gunter's revelations to land with a thunderous impact.
Interfering with the trial, and how do they do it? Well, maybe they can bribe a judge or a prosecutor, but more likely they can bribe someone on the jury. But it's all dirty interference, obviously illegal and criminal. I mean, I can't help but think of that scene in The Godfather where someone was going to turn on the mob boss and then they get to him through threatening his family. They bring his brother in from Italy. That's right. How it normally looks in the movies. It's a dirty criminal act by a gang.
Lorne Gunter, known for his incisive political commentary, has laid bare the underlying causes behind Trudeau's abrupt resignation. He details not just the surface-level controversies, but the deeper systemic issues that have plagued the government. Gunter's expose is not simply an indictment of one individual, but a reflection on the state of Canadian politics as a whole. As Gunter's revelations circulate, they have sparked widespread debates about the balance of power, ethics and leadership, and the accountability of elected officials. This is no ordinary resignation. It is a moment of reckoning.
Would resign. And you could bet that already online and on TV, the CBC and the Star would have been hollering for Stephen Harper's resignation. If this had happened under a Conservative, if Andrew Scheer becomes the Prime Minister and something like this happens to him, they'll be the first to shout that he must step aside for the good of the country. They would already have had, like, because we all knew this report was coming sometime this week.
For nearly a decade, Trudeau has been a central figure in Canadian politics. His promises of transparency, inclusivity, and progressive governance earned him international acclaim in his early years. However, as his tenure progressed, cracks begin to show. Critics argue that Trudeau's policies often favored optics over substance, leaving Canadians disillusioned.
Will you see any of that around Trudeau? No. And Trudeau has no shame, and I don't think he has a lot of intellect, so he probably will not resign. In fact, he definitely won't resign.
Trudeau's leadership style has faced criticism for being overly centralized, with decisions made by a close-knit group of advisors rather than reflecting broader democratic consultation. This perception has fueled concerns about whether his resignation was a response to personal failings or the result of systemic pressure from within his own party.
The murder rate is up in Canada since the Liberals took over by about 40%. Is it any wonder that the rape rate in Canada has doubled since the Liberals took over? People are not sent to jail very often, and when they are, they're not kept there very long. That's the simple gist of it. You and I have talked before about how often experts turn out to be wrong. They were wrong about a lot of the pandemic countermeasures, for instance.
News of Trudeau's resignation has elicited strong reactions across Canada. Supporters mourn the departure of a leader they believe championed progressive values. Detractors, however, see this as a long overdue consequence of poor governance and misplaced priorities. Social media platforms are abuzz with heated discussions. Hashtags like Trudeau resignation and Canadian politics have trended for days, highlighting the widespread interest in the unfolding drama. The public's reaction underscores a broader discontent with the political establishment and raises questions about the direction Canada will take moving forward. The media's role in Trudeau's resignation cannot be understated. While some outlets have portrayed his departure as a personal decision, others have linked it to mounting scandals and internal party conflicts. Gunter's revelations have added fuel to the fire, challenging Canadians to consider whether the media's portrayal aligns with reality.
I'm a little afraid for who's going to be coming in next. I know the vote won't be right away, but it will be coming, a sooner election than October, which means most likely Conservatives will get in. With Trump being in America, I think that's really scary. And women's rights.
This moment has exposed the complex relationship between politics and media in shaping public opinion. The way Trudeau's tenure and resignation are framed will likely influence how future leaders are judged. The implications of Trudeau's resignation extend beyond party lines. This is a critical moment for Canadians to reassess their expectations of leadership. It also raises broader questions about the accountability of public officials and the mechanisms in place to ensure transparency and governance. What happens when a leader fails to meet the promises that brought them to power? This is a question not just for Canada, but for democracies around the world. Trudeau's resignation is a wake-up call about the importance of holding leaders accountable.
The best way to stop crime is to reintegrate the potential criminals into society as quickly as possible. No. You're releasing them. You're releasing the people who have shown themselves to be the most likely to commit crime. You're releasing those people into the general population.
Gunter's analysis delves into the key events that led to Trudeau's resignation. He highlights a pattern of decision-making that prioritized political survival over national interest. From ethics violations to economic missteps, Gunter's expose paints a picture of a government struggling to maintain its credibility.
I mean, the James Lake Cree Nation multiple killings, the stabbings last year were perpetrated by someone who had been under mandatory early release from prison, in part because of what they call the glad you principle, which is where judges have to discount the sentence of Indigenous criminals because they're Indigenous. It's presumed that they had a harder upbringing than non-Indigenous criminals, and so therefore they get a partial pass.
One of the most striking aspects of Gunter's revelations is his focus on internal party dynamics. According to Gunter, Trudeau's resignation was not solely a result of external pressure, but also reflected growing discontent within his own ranks. Justin Trudeau's tenure as Prime Minister had an undeniable international footprint. His policies on climate change, inclusivity, and diplomacy earned Canada a spotlight on the global stage. However, his resignation casts uncertainty over how Canada will navigate its foreign relations moving forward. Allies may question Canada's stability, while adversaries could see this moment as a sign of internal weakness. This shift demands careful handling by the next leader to ensure Canada maintains its credibility in global affairs.
That the Liberals created. That's not the crimes we're talking about. This is people who've pointed the guns in the commission of a crime, fired a gun in the commission of a crime, in some way or other used a gun to commit a crime.
Trudeau's resignation has left the Liberal Party at a crossroads. Once celebrated for its progressive vision, the party must now contend with a fractured base and declining public trust. The search for a successor is not just about finding a leader, but about redefining the party's identity. Whether it doubles down on progressive policies or adopts a more centrist approach could determine its viability in the next election. This leadership change offers a rare opportunity to rebuild and reconnect with disillusioned voters.
The murder rate among Indigenous Canadians is 7 times what the murder rate is among non-Indigenous Canadians. And That's significant, I think, because the murder rate among other minority Canadians, other visible minority Canadians.
Trudeau's resignation has sparked a wave of political engagement at the grassroots level. Citizens, emboldened by the unfolding events, are pushing for reforms in governance, transparency, and policy implementation. Community organizations, advocacy groups, and independent candidates are gaining momentum, challenging the traditional dominance of major political parties. This growing civic involvement signals a potential shift in how Canadians interact with their political system, potentially fostering a more participatory democracy in the years ahead. The resignation of a sitting prime minister is a rare and significant event. It sets off a chain reaction that will shape Canadian politics for years to come. The Liberal Party now faces the daunting task of selecting a new leader who can rebuild public trust and chart a new course for the party.
I'm excited to see the process unfold in the months ahead. We were elected for the third time in 2021 to strengthen the economy post-pandemic and advance Canada's interests in a complicated world.
For Canadians, this moment is an opportunity to engage more deeply with the democratic process. It is a chance to demand greater accountability and to push for policies that reflect the needs of the people rather than the interests of a select few. Trudeau's resignation, as exposed by Lorne Gunter, is not just a political event. It is a turning point in Canadian history. It challenges citizens to reflect on the values that define their nation and the type of leadership they want moving forward. This is a story that will continue to unfold with lessons that extend far beyond Canada's borders. If you enjoyed this breakdown, leave a like and subscribe to our channel. Watch more videos here for the latest insights.